I'm from New Jersey. He's from Iran. It's good enough for a podcast. We're Team Supreme. Technology, boys.
We have a deep history in technology, you and I.
Yes. It's always been a good topic for Matt and I. We've gone late nights talking about where technology is heading. Although we probably haven't had that conversation in a while. I think we might actually be in the place technology-wise of what we were speculating back then.
Yes.
I think we are. We might be there or pretty close to it.
The automated stuff that's going on, the AI, it's getting there. It's getting there.
Well, I remember buying my first ever computer, and I had gotten all these savings bonds when I was born, and I had all these things kind of like put away, and it had gained value over time. That I remember asking my parents if we could cash these in so I could buy a computer, and we had never had a computer before, and that was by far going to be a huge technology leap in my house, right? Because before that we had TV with cable. I guess we had a VCR, so we're able to that was pretty much the extent of our technology in our house.
Right.
Well, when I was a kid, of course we had TV, but we also had a Betamax.
Oh, you have
video
one?
Players? Yeah.
You know what? I don't know anybody who ever had a Betamax.
Yeah, the way I understood, I mean, this may be just hearsay, but Betamax was very, very popular in the Middle East. But then slowly, I guess, they started producing porn movies on VCRs. Mm-hmm. So Betamax went out of business. That's the story that I've heard.
You know what? It's probably true.
I feel like I've heard that too. I feel like I think that was a factor in the VCR versus Betamax thing.
It's really messed up, and I can't really think of specific examples, but I read about it that porn is a huge driver in the expansion of the web, technology of the web. Because the traffic is so bananas to porn sites that it's like they use porn, it helps push innovation for the internet. And, think about streaming and all that stuff. It's all rooted in pornography.
Well, that's, it's funny you say that, because I was just thinking about this the other day where, like I said, I feel like I'm reading endless articles about AI and also about how these sort of, these neuro technologies at different, I think Elon Musk is trying to develop something called Neuralink or something like that, where you're actually having a computer, you're connecting yourself to a computer. I don't know what that means, if that means about, Google in your head or something, or, but I look at the movie Ready Player One, where you're immersed in a virtual world, and that's obvious, that's something that's trying to be developed or is being developed, where you're not going to be able to, decipher reality from this virtual reality. Imagine what's going to happen to the porn industry in this situation. Is it going to, and also, what about the ramifications of relationships? You're married, but you have virtual sex with some, random person that's living in Europe somewhere, who's linked up into the same sex room that you are, and it's as real as the real thing, but it's all in your mind. Are you cheating on your wife, or
emotionally,
is it masturbation?
I think their answer would be yes. You're cheating.
Yes, for sure. But I'm saying is, forget about the actual answer to that question, but
right.
Just think about what kind of money
it's gonna fuck shit up.
and what kind of powerhouse industry that's going to be. The first company that says, "Hey, who wants to jump into a sex room anytime you want?" And be, what if you could be, you could be somebody different during all this.
But that's what I was saying, is pornography is driving that.
Yeah.
Because these porn companies are like, well, shit, we have virtual reality. Well, we obviously should do porn in this.
Right.
You have drones. Well, we obviously should be shooting porn with a drone.
That would be amazing. But actually, what you mentioned about like an exponential advancement in technology, I saw the TV show The Wire, and there was this one episode where this is like 2003 or 2004, where one of the detectives, I think it was McNulty, they were watching somebody and he was doing something on his phone, and somebody said, "What's he doing there? What's he doing?" He said, "Oh, he's sending a text message." So what's that? It's texting. Like texting was an unknown thing, like not that long ago, 2004.
Those were all pagers then.
And now it's
exactly.
changed. It's changed American culture so much. Texting has that. People do not want to talk on the phone. They're like, "Why the fuck
Why are you calling
me?"
Exactly.
Right.
You can even buy
like,
books on how to send a text. I mean, how to format your text message to mean certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And I remember probably like the first like technological jump, you know, like when I remember when I was a kid was two things. It was when it went from tapes to CDs. That was huge, right? Because the look of a disc going in, sliding into a machine or being put on, just looked like the future. That was like a tape with tape coming out of it. You could pull out of it and destroy it. Like that was so you could just hold all that and just felt like something. But the disc, it also like how is it all in that little disc? And I don't know if how much better sound it was, but when you put that thing on, it sounded like you were in the recording studio.
yeah. It was better sound.
I
mean, it was like the difference was so stark.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the first time listening to a CD. That's how stark it was for me. It was Guns N' Roses,
yeah.
and I was like it was just so clear and bright and powerful, and you know, it was. The difference now is that, you know, I'm doing audio all the time. People are trying to find that feel again of tape, so they'll start recording a vintage
Have like
and old
a retro
to not
feel to
have
it.
it be so bright and digital. And it's actually CD quality sound is not that great as far as the possibilities go.
Right. Well, I mean, I was probably one of the last ones to get. My parents did not make the jump to CDs that
From
quickly.
the cassette players to see. Well, I remember, I want to tell you the exact year. Okay, it was 1984 or 5. My parents bought this cassette player that had, it was like I don't know if it's just the correct expression, like double decker.
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
had like two,
yeah,
two
yeah.
cassette.
Sure.
So you could dub dual, you could go one or the other.
Dual player, yeah. And back then, that was like, I mean, it was considered just the most advanced device on the planet. Wow, we can play both of them, you know.
And weren't you able on those to like record one onto the other,
Exactly,
so you
that
could
was the
duplicate
idea.
everything?
Yeah.
That was a big deal. I remember that too. And the other thing though was the like when, you know, before I got that computer, first thing was Atari for gaming.
Exactly.
And my dad had gotten that as a gift. So that so I was really little, but that was like when my dad, you know, they played Pitfall and like all these original games, and to see him play and be better at, you know, these games than I was felt like a normal thing. But when that Nintendo when I got that Nintendo, it was like I had taken like over now. Like now I'm going to be the one in front of the screen and playing nonstop, and
You're the first man that's gonna land on the moon.
essentially, yeah.
Were you the first kid in your neighborhood with the Nintendo?
I'll tell you what, I was not the first kid, but I was the first kid in the game when everybody had the game Punch Out, Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Beat it?
I wasn't the first one to beat it, but I was the first one to beat Bald Bull.
Aha!
No, not Bald Bull. I was the first one to get to him. I beat that tiger guy that spins around in a circle. No one could figure out how to beat him.
Gotta watch the diamond, man.
Right, but he also had to like block every time he went down. And I remember beating him and getting to Bald Bull, and then they gave you that passcode so that you could jump right
Stay
to
right
it.
there. Yeah.
So I wrote down the passcode, and now I was the only kid in school, and I was like in third grade maybe. I was having, you know, sixth graders, everybody coming up to me and being like, "Dude, I heard you beat the tiger guy. I heard you got to Bald Bull." Like, and What's the code? What's the code? What's the code? Like I became so popular all of a sudden because this thing, that was like a huge deal.
There was this one game on Atari called Riverside. Riverside.
I think I know
It
what
was
you're...
like a jet that was going upward, and in its way it would like fire missiles at these different like obstacles and all. I remember like to get to the higher levels of that game was considered a huge honor back at home. Like, oh,
Really?
I've heard your score is this. No, mine is this one. And people would compete, gamble, you know.
Well, what's crazy is now any game from any era, you can jump on YouTube and fucking find out how to beat it. Like,
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
oh, okay, this is what I got to do to get past this guy. But back then, there was no...
You had to buy a book.
Yeah.
You had to buy a book.
There's a book. Nintendo would make books. I'm sure it was their game developers that were making because everyone you had to figure it out for yourself. How do I beat? And there's like really kind of some of these games have intricate tricks, you know, like the one with the punch out, it was a little flash thing.
Did you guys have Walkman, like a Walkman or a Discman growing up?
Yeah,
I had one, yeah.
I associate Walkman with the movie Breakdance because I remember as soon as that one came to the black market back at home, Walkmans were being sold in the same market next door, and they were orange,
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember
yeah, like
Orange. Yeah.
orange headphones.
I remember I bought any like, you know, Walkman or Discman that I had bought growing up. We always would take a bus into the city because I lived right over the bridge from Manhattan, and we'd go down to, I guess it was like 42nd Street or one of those like where they just had electronics laid out on blankets on the street, or movies, you know, bootleg movies. They were all like either I don't know, I guess stolen or just knockoffs. But that's where I would always get in my electronics, and they're always in this like hard plastic packaging that you needed like a machete to get through, and you would be
Yes.
lucky if you didn't damage your thing while you were
Or
opening
stab
it.
yourself in the hand.
Yeah. And half the time, you know, it would work for like a week or two. But I remember saving up and getting my first. Do you remember there were these? I think it was Sony had put out those yellow Walkmans that.
Like the water ones?
They were water
Yeah,
resistant,
water-
so
yeah.
you could, you know, which meant what though?
Get in
Like
the shower with it?
I don't
Yeah.
really understood. I mean, to me, it gave me
in the rain?
a peace of mind that like if I ever spilled my drink on it, it would be fine.
Right.
But yeah, you couldn't put the headphones underwater, or you couldn't have the headphones wet, and it didn't have a speaker, so there was no way you could actually listen to this thing in the water. But if you apparently dropped it in the water,
You'd be
and
cool.
it didn't go past a certain feet of depth
Yeah.
too, then it would
Pressure
be fine.
resistant, yeah.
But but you would think that was like, don't go lower than like a few leagues down, or you're gonna be
Leagues?
Yeah, well, we're talking distance in water, aren't we?
I guess. How much is a league? Like
I don't know.
Oh.
A lot, I guess. Anyway.
Did you guys have Commodore 64 or Commodore 128?
That was the first computer I played. It was in my
Okay.
school though, and I think a friend had it. But that was the first time I ever played computer games.
Okay.
Did
Because
you?
I remember Commodore. No, I had a Sinclair, or like they would call it Spectrum. It's a much smaller version. Back there, we had Sinclair or Spectrum, and then Commodore 64, Commodore 128. The reason Commodore 64 and 128 was really, really in demand, high demand, was because they had Rambo, the video game of Rambo
So-
that everybody wanted to play.
Was that a system you put into your TV, or was it its own computer?
No, you put it into your TV.
So it was kind of like an Atari or like
Atari
or a
yeah,
Nintendo
yeah.
kind of a thing.
But I had a cousin. He was very like studious and gifted, and he used like Commodore to like draw like all of these geometrical shapes and make them move
Yeah.
around. Like he was like doing
Basic?
computer programming. Yes. Yeah.
So what? I mean, maybe I'm thinking about the wrong thing. I guess maybe that wasn't a personal computer. The Commodore 64. I do remember
I think
people
it was
having
both.
it.
I think you could do computer stuff on it.
Yeah.
But it was a game system.
But was that the system that was the competition of Atari?
Yes.
And was that the one that came out, was like had come out with the ET game or something like that became
Probably.
a disaster and sunk it, or maybe that was Atari. I don't know. I do remember playing
Yeah.
certain games that weren't on Atari at a friend's house on the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
I think Rambo might have been one of them. It sounds really familiar. Like specifically, I remember looking at seeing the box for it.
Yeah, I remember he would throw these grenades at the Vietnamese soldiers and blow them up. And my cousin was really good at like throwing grenades, and then in between he would pick up his what is it, RPG-7, like a rocket launcher, and we had a helicopter, and some Russians who were the mercenaries or
Well,
military advisor would fall out of it. And
But I mean, those war games were the majority. I felt like there were so many of those types. Those were
Yeah.
the games that we grew up with. Were like
Yeah.
Commando and Rambo.
Rambo, yeah. And then there was one Renegade.
Renegade,
This
I
guy
remember,
would
yeah.
get out of a train and he would like do kickboxing, karate, and he had muscles.
Contra,
Oh yeah.
Contra.
the cheat code.
Oh, haven't played that.
Up, down.
No, is it up, down, down, left, right,
A,
A, B, select, start, or something
Something like that. I
I
tried it at the emulation they had at this bar down the way.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't get it. I couldn't remember it.
My brother-in-law gave me one of the best gifts I've ever gotten this past Christmas. He got it somehow. You know those Nintendo and those little mini ones that you plug in and get all the, it's like a bunch of original games in it. It was that, but it was a version from China, and somehow he got it I don't know how he got it, but it has over 600 Nintendo games on it.
Holy shit.
It's everything, and it's and the
You imagine flying back in time and showing up with that
Oh,
at middle
I
school?
think
Like,
that-
I got them all right here.
Right here.
that goes through my brain every time I play it, because I decided to sit down, not every night, but when I feel like playing it, and go down the list, because I gotta say I don't recognize 95% of the titles, because the majority of them are titles that were never released in the United States. That some of them are all written in different languages. Some of them are just, this like another game, but they've literally changed Mario to become Peter Pan, and it's like now it's the Peter Pan game, but he's jumping on mushrooms, right? So I'm going through these games now one at a time, and it's just incredible. And I think that every time, if I was a kid at the time when I was playing Nintendo and knew that was going to happen, but that actually kind of happened to me when I was a kid. My mother owned a used toy store for a few years growing up. It was actually a used kids, like baby and kids clothing and toy store. It wasn't just toys. It was kind of like, so people would come and donate things and she would resell them. It's called Happy Hand-Me-Downs. And I'd go there after school. And one day, and this was before we had Nintendo, before there was Nintendo, we only had Atari. And this woman came in with a garbage bag and said, "Could you just take these? My son can't have these anymore." And dumps out about 50 Atari games, just every Atari game you could imagine. We had 3 at home, I think that was all we had. It was, if
You obviously
It
were
was-
quality control for the store.
It was one of those moments where I only remember in slow motion of the cartridges bouncing off the front desk, of like how many there actually were. And and I took that whole bag home. I said, "I'm taking these." And my mom was like, "Fine." She didn't even care. She was like, "Sure." And back then I went through every single game the same way I'm doing it now. And I'm only about 100 games into my list right now.
So, did you have Nintendo and those sort of,
Well,
like the Nintendo game
The
system?
Nintendo. No, we had Atari, but I never made it to Nintendo. I'll explain why. Because we only had Atari, but we had a neighbor who they have they have relatives in the States, and then his grandma was visiting them, and she came back with a Nintendo. So that was the first time I saw a Nintendo, which to me it was like very, very fascinating that you can use a pistol
Oh, yeah.
and shoot at the TV screen and shoot that duck or something. But
Duck
I played
Hunt,
it
yeah.
Duck Hunt. I just played it once, and then after that we moved, and I never played Nintendo. I just played my Atari, and later on my parents got me a Spectrum, but they never got me a Commodore 64 or Commodore 128.
These are systems that are I've never heard of most of those.
No.
I mean the Atari. I never heard of Spectrum. I never heard of the Commodore.
I
I
did
heard the
hear-
Commodore 64, but not one that was over that.
128. I remember
Yeah.
that.
What was like advertising like over? I mean, like were there commercials for Atari? Were there commercials for Nintendo? Like, or
Okay.
how'd you know about it?
Yeah, this is right after the Iranian Revolution, which there were no commercials, no advertisings, nothing. They were like against everything altogether.
Yeah.
But it was just word of the mouth. Like my cousin had a Spectrum, so I was like, I want one, and they were like, no, you can't because you have an Atari. And then after that, like one of my neighbors, they bought their son a Commodore 64, and then we went there. They had Rambo, and then I started crying because everybody had seen Rambo besides me.
Oh, the
So-
actual movie.
Yeah,
So they had that connection to the
yeah,
game.
exactly. Like Sylvester Stallone, this and that. But we never called him Sylvester Stallone. It was just Rocky. So I told my dad, how come you say you should be like Rocky? You should be strong, do push-ups and boxing, whatever.
Right.
But you don't get me Rambo 2 or whatever. Because First Blood was, we would call that Rambo 1, Rambo 2. So he went out and he looked everywhere in the black market. And finally, one of my uncles brought Rambo. So I saw it and then I calmed the fuck down. And then, but nobody bought me like Commodore or so that was it. But no advertising, nothing. Like you would walk in the market and then you would see different shops would like present them. Like, hey, you want a Commodore 64?
What about a personal home computer? Like, did you ever at one point have that?
That didn't happen till I was in high school.
Yeah.
I took a class on programming, very basic, and then they bought me a computer, which it was kind of useless at the time.
Right.
Because there was no internet being introduced to the country. We're talking about like 1992, 1991.
Yeah,
That's when I got mine. Yeah.
yeah. That's
Just
when-
word processing. I would just write
pretty
my
much
papers on it.
Right? It was like suddenly all of a sudden you don't need to
I think
type.
there was one game I played.
Although I don't remember ever like being on a typewriter or anything, but I know that now all of a sudden I could print stuff.
It was not a color monitor.
Well, this is what I bought with those savings bonds. Was I had cashed it all in for an IBM home computer, but it was like sort of like like a Frankenstein of a computer because it was like the IBM was the actual computer, but it was a different company screen. And the guy who was a neighbor in the building I lived in basically sold these types of computers and put together these packages. He was kind of like a dealer in that way, and he put together mine. And I remember. Like it was so it's so funny compared to today. Like it was just a screen with a menu, a list of the things you could do, and it was your word processor in which you could type words in, and it was basically the system preferences, and it was just settings, and it was like maybe it was fun. You'd have like a calculator on it, just little things that were all in one that seemed so cool at the time. But I remember also. The first time we hooked up to the internet, and it was and pretty much everyone I knew who hooked up to the internet where I grew up hooked up through a AOL America Online disc that would come in through
Yep.
the mail
Or Prodigy.
or Prodigy.
Or CompuServe.
Yeah, there were different companies that are the gateways to the internet. Basically, it wasn't just internet service. It wasn't it wasn't a company. It was like you had a phone line, and that was all you needed was a phone line, right?
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah.
All you needed. But so I don't know how it was for you, but for us, we'd get these discs, and it'd be like you have 40 free hours to use the internet over AOL, and you load that up, and there it was. And I remember like the very first thing I ever did on the internet was look up hockey scores on ESPN.com. I think it was ESPN.com, and it was just. All it was a list of scores, and I jizzed my pants when I saw scores popping up on my screen, on my computer screen, at my command. I didn't have to wait for the scores to scroll somewhere on a TV station.
Okay.
First thing I remember was there's a friend was on a bulletin board. It was the first I saw the internet.
A bulletin board,
Remember the bulletin boards?
like message boards, but were postings that you just wrote
Yes.
little statements.
It was like, it was just, but it's like Reddit, basically.
Yeah.
Where you join these groups most of it was pornography.
Yeah, of course.
But some of it was like, here's the bulletin board on whatever, just like anything else, like cooking and maybe probably not cooking, but like engine repair. But I remember they got the internet at our high school, at the computer lab, and I remember looking up a David Letterman clip, like a real short, super grainy, terrible quality,
Took a day to download.
4 or 5 second clip.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
We're in the future.
This is it.
This is it. We're in it.
This is it. And
What about?
oh, there you go.
Well, I left Iran in 1998. Up until then, we could only send emails to each other through this national sort of like computer network, no internet.
Which they looked at every email.
Back then, yeah, because the volume of people exchanging emails were pretty limited, just like engineers, professionals, and all. But then there were also discussions on how the government of Iran will never, ever allow internet here, because that way we will be exposed. Everybody's going to find out about everything that's happening here. And then I went to England and I learned about the internet. It was 1998, and we had a class where they taught us how to search things online, how to open an email account, a Yahoo account, and things of that nature. But then later on, when I went back there, I saw like, wow, like we actually had internet in Iran, and it's been, in some aspects, it's even like way more advanced than here, because many of the sites are banned there.
Oh, yeah.
So people have to go and purchase these proxies or filter breakers so they can circumvent the filters. So then that has sort of like provided the phones with some additional features that they can like search faster.
I think
now.
social media, like what the election that was a few years ago.
2009 with
when everybody painted their finger.
yes,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that was a big fucking deal. Like
Yeah.
that whole, the way to get communication in and out.
Exactly, like the so-called Green Movement, which was a sort of a movement generated in Iran in order to support a particular candidate, was crushed by the security forces. So in order for them to communicate, they used Twitter. And I remember it was 2009, the Twitter's stock went up.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the ridiculous like volume of usage out of Iran.
For communication.
For communication.
Yeah.
And when I mention that, people, they laugh, they think I'm exaggerating to say like the Iranians are using Twitter. And I'm like, no, like even people who are not that bright, let alone a bunch of like engineering students in Iran, like you have Farsi phones, you can write everything, you know.
Do you remember what your expectations for the future when it comes to technology was when you were a kid? Like, what were things that you thought at this point in your life you'd be using, or what would you be available to now? How true to it was what you thought it was going to be?
I thought there would be like BMWs that would fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my idea. You sit in the car, and it's, I don't know, for some reason it was BMW.
Only BMWs.
BMWs, yeah. And then it would fly.
So you'd have just a series of asshole BMW owners, but in the air.
Yeah, they're at least they're above you.
definitely.
Like now you really know your status.
yeah.
Like, they're literally above you.
So what's fucked up is that technology absolutely exists, and flying cars are absolutely a thing, and could be they're actually sold. Like they're basically drones that fly, that two-seater drones that you can sit in. But
I think we all
train this society to fly, I mean, that is a catastrophe.
It would have
waiting
to be.
happen.
Well, first of all, I think we all. I mean, I had the same thought. I think that was at our age when we were younger. Flying cars was the go-to. Oh, that's what the future is going to be. We're going to have flying cars. We also had, Back to the Future, the movie that was very popular that showed us flying cars. We're like, oh, that's going to be what it's. That's what I was trying to think of. That was like a flying freeway.
Now, go ahead.
But I was just saying, like, now you think about it, and it's like, sure, I'm sure they can't, they could absolutely, and have been developing. So it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
It would not work.
It'd be cars falling out of the sky.
It would have to
all
be
the
the
time.
following, which is also on its way. completely, fully GPS automated vehicles that fly in a distinct pattern that is repeatable over and over again, and the humans has no control over it whatsoever at all. That's the only way it would work.
That would have to start on the ground. It couldn't, obviously.
True. Absolutely
Like
true.
that society change would have to be fully on the ground first, where nobody's driving themselves before they could even thinking about being like, let's get
Give
up
it a
there.
shot. Let's give it a shot. We'll
Otherwise,
start at
like-
10 feet.
Otherwise, like if you have a road rage up there in the air,
Yeah.
it would be crazy.
But you couldn't give control to the owner. Like that would be it. It would be like if you're up in the air, there would be laws again. There would have to be laws about being able to control your own vehicle when you're in the sky, because you couldn't have a flying car at your disposal when you're if you're a crazy person and you have a flying car. It's just not going to work.
No way. No way.
That's why I don't think it's ever going to work, because there'll always be crazy people.
That's true.
And there'll always be ways to hack into your own technology.
That's true.
And take over, I'm sure. We think until technology kills us all.
Yeah, I also used to think that we'll be having like robots that are like functioning as human beings.
Yeah.
Like they have like the human being's intelligence.
That is, well, that's the special nut, but they're fucking close on that one too. Of having AI.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Assistants
but
and
I'm
robots
talking. But I'm talking about like what we thought would be happening at this moment.
I
You know,
gotcha, I
so
gotcha.
like yeah, I thought that's it. It was flying cars, robots. Like I thought not so much that like we were all going to be walking amongst lots of walking robots, but I think I definitely envisioned like every like company or business or something having at least one robot that did something, that was like that took some sort of function that like,
Yeah.
and I guess that's not true. I mean, robots are walking around now, but we do have, robots in our hands instead, in our pockets with us at all times.
I think I thought there would be kind of some holographic communication,
Yeah.
which they're pretty close
Which there kind of is.
as well. They're kind of right there as well on that. But I thought it would be a lot more ubiquitous, like it is now, than it is now.
I mean, pretty much every movie we saw was just influencing what we
But you know what's
expect
crazy?
anyway.
Like a lot of movies back then would have like communication face to face over a device, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is now absolutely a part of what we can do. But no one really prefers not to. If you get a FaceTime, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh,
It better be my parents.
They obviously accidentally are FaceTiming me right now. No one's actually calling me right now as a FaceTime. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna let this go to.
But that is one thing I do remember envisioning, like maybe that's how we're all
yeah.
going to communicate.
Or-
and now it's here, and no one wants to fucking do it. Like, we'll just.
It's true.
I'd rather text
Yeah.
it.
It's so true. But it is unless it's family, and then you're like, oh well, now I don't have to fly to see my family.
Good point. Good
Have
point.
FaceTime.
Well,
I love you guys if you're listening.
When I was introduced to Skype, I only thought Skype is like a communication method where you have to see the other person's face. I didn't know it could be audio only. And then I was working for this translation company, and I had to translate a bunch of stuff. And this lady was supposed to call me to ask a few questions, and she Skyped me, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna see her face, but then I found out no, it's just like an audio communication.
Yeah, it was a way to talk without having to call long distance. Like
Yeah.
you could call anywhere. You could talk to anyone anywhere.
This is like the original, what Skype was originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, here you go. Use the internet to communicate.
Yeah,
Well, here's the thing that I have been thinking about a lot when I'm seeing the things that are being developed, like we were talking about Elon Musk's, with the neuro thing, and and possibly being able to not be able to distinguish reality from virtual reality. If that's the case, I sometimes think, what's the point of developing these superhighways or developing all these things in the real world when it's going to be so much better in the virtual world?
Right.
Like you will never be able to probably top what you could experience in this virtual world.
But have you climbed a mountain? Have you smelled
Well,
the breeze?
I think there's going to be a major divide of people that are going to completely start rejecting technology when it's getting closer and closer to being inside of us, for there being this singularity thing.
I
where
hope the first step is everyone getting off of Facebook. That should be step one.
that would be step one. We'll be one of the last generations that ever experience life without this level of connection and
Yes.
this level of communication. Like we were talking about pagers before, that was like that was like the peak of technology that I got to before it all started really changing. But like being able to just take that with me anywhere and have someone, because before that it was like, if I'm going to call somebody, I need to find a payphone, and there was no way to get in touch with anybody. I mean, I talk about this with my kids all the time. They can't even comprehend it. They don't understand what that even means. But yeah, we were the last ones, or one of the last ones, that are going to experience that, not having that level of communication be a normal thing. Mm-hmm. And anything you read when it came to news was basically, it almost felt like it was your choice on what you wanted to know, and you had to go find it out.
Yeah.
Rather than scrolling and then you find things out, and now you don't. I mean, so with that being said, I feel like when I look forward from here, I feel like it's not that taking away Facebook or taking away certain platforms isn't going to change anything. It's just going to be a different one.
Yeah.
It's going to need to be. There's got to be a way to figure out not policing, but figuring out a way that to let the person know if it's true, or how that's possible. I don't know, but how it, if there's like a whole new branch of agency of some kind that is, that everybody trusts. I don't see how that's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. But thinking ahead now, the way we were able to dream when we were younger, to predict what it was going to be. I feel like then it was so sure, flying cars, robots. There were these things that were definitely going to happen, and now we're like, I don't know where the fuck this is all going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Like I remember, I never ever envisioned that like our phone devices will get us to like even stop like really communicating or talking to each other in person.
Yeah.
Like I never envisioned a world where we're all sitting around a table having lunch, dinner, or whatever, but we're not even making eye contact, but he's just looking down. Mm-hmm. It's just trying to send.
It's so messed up. I mean, the iPhone represents the penultimate dream of what the internet was like going to be, like the potential. I remember them talking about it, like, you don't understand how big this is. And they'd go to all these scenarios. They're like, well, I guess that would be pretty cool when it happens. But here it is, all the world's communication, all the world's knowledge, all the world's, power, all in the palm of your hand, accessible at any time, completely normal. It is kind of, by nature, we want to learn so much, and we're so interested as a species of of learning. That's what makes us so amazing. And we're constantly just learning all the time now. We're just like, I'll just get on here and see what's going on, because it's just a flow of information. There's not a lot of sitting quietly, just waiting,
And doesn't it feel like now also a lot of what we consider, the world's problems today, and what we really,
Yes.
could listen, that there's always somebody, myself included, that you go, well, that's because of what technology. That's due to social media now. This issue is happening because of something on how we're not communicating anymore in the way we used to, or things are so fast and we know so much news, and it's just right in your face as it's happening real time, and that's why all these different things are happening. It feels like we're blaming the technology a lot on, and and a lot of it's true. It's really happening because of technology. So it's super it's hard. Like, yeah, I have an instinct to leave Facebook, like you do. Like, oh, I just can't, like, why do I need that in my life? But then I think like, but it's just gonna be. But what? Then I'm gonna stay on this one on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I only got an Instagram a year ago, like 1 year ago, and I'm like, everybody was on it. I'm like, all right, what the hell is this about? Because I just thought it was about taking pictures, but I was like, holy shit, this is a whole new thing. Like this is, and it's not as intense.
Yeah,
it didn't seem as intense. But what I see, I don't know. You're right, because every potential thing can happen. You're like, okay, this could happen. The thing that I always worry about is the companies that make too much money for it not happening, particularly like nanotechnology and healthcare.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the advancements that are all the forces that are lined up against that is like same thing with electric vehicles and all that. It's daunting, and it's not going to be quick.
And I always, when I think about that, about like this, like big company repression when it comes to technology, I sort of convince myself that is all in America and other countries aren't having that problem, even though I'm sure they are. But like, I think, well, someone else will invent it. So, and then we won't be able to repress it because it's going to be out there in the open. Like everyone's going to know there's a cure for this now.
Yeah.
But it's over here, but not here.
Yeah.
It should be here. Yeah. So
I deactivated Facebook and Instagram 3 years ago.
No shit.
Like 3.5 years ago, and I could do without them for almost 2 years, and it was actually very, very therapeutic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is.
But you got back in?
I got back in because I started doing more stand-up
Oh,
comedy,
right, yes.
and people were like, "Why are you not promoting yourself?"
Right.
And then I realized, like, yes, I need to get back in there.
But don't you think you have, now that you're back in there, as time goes on, you've developed your own type of filter when it comes to looking at social media? Like, I feel like my eyes are trained now to immediately hop over something that I just know is either bullshit or something I don't want to read or something I'm not there for. And I feel like I could easily jump to things like pictures of my friends or their kids, or an article I want to read about the Avengers or something, like something that's just like, I feel like I'm developing a muscle, or we all are, that we've never had before, and that's being able to filter out this bullshit. Maybe that's just going to keep growing more and more.
Yeah, probably. Like we'll learn methods of like doing censorship for ourselves.
Let me ask you this. Looking forward, we were talking before about how there might be, the way it looks, it could be this, virtual reality world that, we're heading towards, and versus the real world. You have an opportunity, let's say, to go to Hawaii, right? And spend thousands and thousands of dollars to actually get on a plane and go to Hawaii and have that experience and fly back and take all that time off from work or whatever. Or you have the exact same trip on your couch in a virtual reality setting that feels as real as the trip you just had, but you're not spending that money. You're not getting on a plane and having to go to the airport. You're not missing time off from work. It all feels real, and time is completely relative too. So you're not sitting on your couch for a week. You're actually sitting on your couch for a few hours, but the memories and everything feels like a week. Which one are you choosing?
Depending on my bank account. Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
So
Probably-
assume you have the money for it. Okay, assume you have that choice still.
Then I'll definitely go to Hawaii and get the real experience.
Get the real experience.
I think that's, on a weirder scale or a different scale, it's starting to happen with like going to an NFL game or something like that.
Right, it's true.
People would much rather stay at home, not drop the $150 on the ticket, 40 for parking, 10 for each beer a pop. You're getting in and out of there for 4 tickets. So you're probably spending $1,000 to $1,500. No ifs, ands, nothing you can do about it.
Well, have you seen what they're testing now when it comes to sporting events? Those,
other than making bets in real time.
Well,
the next play will be a run.
Oh, that's a whole
That's
world.
happening.
Yeah, well, I know. But they are testing out cameras that are on, let's say, courtside of a basketball game that have a full view camera. You pay. It's a pay-per-view thing where you sit at home with your own virtual reality device on you, and your buddy could be somewhere else, and you're sitting both courtside at a real live game, and you could look 360 around you, and it's like you're sitting courtside at the game, and you watch the whole game live in virtual reality, but it's from this one game. So everybody who's tapping into this thing has the same seat basically.
Soon the first 2 rows of playoff basketball is just a bunch of
All
GoPros.
cameras.
They're all going to be
all gonna be cameras. And because think about it, if it's pay per view and it's like being the real thing. I mean, think about how much money. Like they actually probably. I mean, they only need one. It depends on if they're all different companies. But yeah, I mean that's already starting, where you could be going to a game rather than going to a game, if that makes sense.
That's wow.
So what about that?
So hopefully war could all turn into that, and we'll just fight virtual wars, and whoever wins.
So you got to get into the car. You got to find parking. You got to go. You got to get everything to get to the game.
I agree with him. I think it comes to the price. What's the price? What's the value of going to the game and being right there versus?
So it's all about how much it costs. I mean, I'm sorry, forget about assuming it's not an issue. Forget about the money part. It's more about the inconvenience of having to go to the game and having to get back. You could have you're still with your friend. You're still watching the game. You're still there. It feels as real as the real. I'm not talking about what they're doing now. I'm talking about in the future where it actually feels as real as it does.
I would go to the game.
Yeah, I think personally I still would feel like I need to go to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, a part of a part of my life is just doing the side activities in order to get to the main activity. Like, let's say if I want to go, I go to like the gym, I go to the spin class or something. Like I can work out at home, but I really enjoy like getting in my car, even when I'm stuck in the traffic. Like at least I'm out of my apartment.
Yeah.
Like I get to see people. There's somebody real next to me that I don't know who this person is. I may try to like from the corner of my eye, look at their monitor, see if they have more miles than me and not, and then I judge them. And then it's just all of these are fun stuff. So, and the same with the game. Like I think it's even having trouble finding parking. Yeah, it sucks, but it's better than just. I mean, this is my personal approach.
Well, I feel like that is the right answer, right? I mean, you want to not give up that real experience, but I wonder if this is a generational thing, and we're the last people that are going to be like thinking that way.
I don't know.
And then the next generation's being like, I ain't going to no fucking game.
Part of me, like for example, my son, he'll come home and he'll jump on Fortnite.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's no longer I want to play the game. The game is a secondary thing to the social aspect of all of his classmates, 6, 7 of them online on the headset, all talking and playing together.
Yeah.
Which for me, I can't imagine something that awesome when I was
it would have been amazing.
a middle schooler. I mean, for elementary school. I mean, that is unbelievable. That would have been so mind blowing to me.
Yes.
And here he is every day. He comes up where I would come home. I'd go out, see my friends till bedtime, sundown, dinner, whatever, come home, and he's doing the same thing, but he's on the couch, but he's seeing all his friends, he's talking to all his friends, they're all doing their stupid fucking dances on the, all their little emoji things. They're not really even playing the game. They're like, they start role-playing, and like a different person will be in charge, and they're all pretending in a pretend game. And it's Megan and I, my wife and I were talking about that, like this is now because we're like we need a limited screen time, but now it's a social thing. It's not really he's just playing that game nonstop. He gets on because he wants to see his friends. He wants to talk to his friends. He wants to be with his friends.
Right.
And it's really
that's where it's going.
That's where it's going.
Well, I mean, like I feel like, and I almost feel guilty having this in a weird way. Feel guilty having this opinion, but I think. Like, I would prefer to be in the virtual world watching a game or going to Hawaii. I feel like, to me, my least favorite parts of having that experience are the getting to the airport, is the all the and spending the money, obviously, and all the bullshit that goes with getting there. and then all the bullshit that comes with coming back. And also, not to mention factors of any kind that could happen there and completely ruin the trip. I went to Hawaii with my wife and kids, and literally 45 minutes into us getting to the pool after we finally put our luggage down and put our bathing suits on and got to the pool so we could have a little bit of pool time in. When we first got there, my daughter dislocated her elbow 45 minutes in, and that turned into a huge thing, obviously. So that wouldn't happen in the virtual world, right? I mean, because you're having a perfect trip. You might even be having an easy trip without the kids, and it's just the wife, and you can't do that. That's another factor when it comes to kids with this thing, is that you could maybe kids are asleep. Let's go to Hawaii for a week. Hey, you want to go to the Eiffel Tower? Things like that. If you're able to go to the Eiffel Tower for the first time ever in a virtual world and it feels exactly how it was to actually be there, are you ever going to make a trip to Paris to go to the Eiffel Tower? Or after that?
Well, then you introduce a whole another societal problem, which is, are people going to fucking leave? They're just going to go in there and they're out. They're like, I'm done with this world.
That's why I think there's going to be a divide. And I think there's going to be a complete society division where it comes to embracing blending with technology, and the other part of people that want to start stepping away from it and backing up. Like how we see it today in different things, when it comes to beliefs right now, there's a lot of backing up going on, and it's a lot of resistance to technology. Car alarm.
But they haven't figured that one out yet.
No,
There's still the goddamn car
still
alarm.
making fucking car alarms.
Like the most pointless, useless fucking thing on earth is a car alarm.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
so... Do you know anyone that was alerted to their car being broken into by their car alarm? They went, I stopped that guy
Yes.
because my car alarm went off.
Never.
No.
Have you ever seen a car with an alarm going off that was worth saving? Seriously,
None.
never. It's always,
No.
you're like, why the fuck does that car have a car alarm in it? And why? It's probably abandoned. No one ever comes to it to turn it off.
Well, the technology's so much better now. They have the doorbells, the Ring doorbells. Anyone that walks within 15 feet of your door,
Right.
you get an alert on your phone. Someone is near your home.
Yeah.
So the cars have that technology as well, or it will be coming shortly. Please, let's get rid of the goddamn car alarms. You're ruining everything.
I don't know. That might stay. It's the same as quarters for public laundry machines. That's still happening. How could they not put dollar slots in those things by now?
Well, how can they not be activated by your Apple phone?
Why can't we do
That'll be next year.
Why can't we do laundry in a virtual world?
Exactly. And put on filthy clothes, but feel like they smell fresh and nice.
Tell me you wouldn't rather fold laundry in a virtual world than doing it for real.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Well, boys, I think that's
That's a good place.
I think it's a good place to stop. Good talking with you guys. Team Supreme.
Team Supreme.
Supreme.